and Amy, just 11 days after Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, part of the firm that created Silicon Valley in 1939, announced it was moving its headquarters from San Jose, California, to Houston, Texas.
Oh, good for them.
Oracle, Larry Ellison's Oracle, announced its headquarters had been moved to Austin, Texas from Redwood City, California. They'll keep a footprint in Redwood City, but the headquarters has moved to Austin, Texas, while Larry Ellison is moving to that island he bought in Hawaii out of California. Hawaii, not exactly a low-tax state, but still more attractive to Ellison than California. And this comes after Elon Musk parachuting out of California, at least personally, to Texas. It comes after other entrepreneurs like Palantir's Lonsdale moved very publicly moved from California as well. So the migration, when is it going to happen? When is it all going to collapse? Well, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens over time, and that's what's happening to big blue state America. You think California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, but those states in particular where there is a mass exodus.
New York City, they're not getting those residents back either. And de Blasio said after Christmas he's shutting everything down if numbers don't improve. Well, completely down. No gym, everything shut down. That was his threat this morning.
Well, and this is the...
They're going to help get the people back.
This is the point of Dan Henninger's piece of the resistance. The resistance is largely occurring in big blue states. It's largely coming from people that are not donning MAGA hats and making a political statement. They're making a survival statement. That's what happened in New York City yesterday, where there was a big rally/press conference held by New York City restaurateurs as well as workers. It was sizable, and it was, the representatives there represented tens of thousands of restaurants and hundreds of thousands of restaurant employees. And this is what one of the individuals present had to say. This is somebody who represents, from an association perspective, Latino restaurateurs and nightclub owners.
That 2/3 of New York restaurants said they are likely to close by the end of the year. Without a comprehensive relief package by our government, a survey of New York City hospital lines also here today showed that 87% of businesses were unable to pay their full rent in August. And when conducted again just last month, 88% of business were not able to pay their full rent in October. Members of our association cite up to 80% of reduction in business compared to before the pandemic. 60 to 80% decrease in outdoor dining since the beginning of the fall. The situation continues to get more and more dire, and are shutting down our indoor dining during the holidays when New York City restaurants are providing the safety measure that working the straw that broke the camel's back.
That's the last straw, he says. Well, so what should be done? I mean, they were very clear in saying, we want to work, but if you're not going to allow us to work, and you're not going to allow us to run our businesses, then you have to compensate us. Then you have to pass the Restaurant Act and provide $120 billion in relief to restaurants and restaurant workers to begin with. And then, if you want to provide relief to other businesses you've shut down, whether it's on Broadway, the theater, the arts and entertainment sector, and other places, airlines, then fine. But we're looking out for our own interests because that's what we're compelled to do. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by Steve Moore, Wall Street Journal columnist, economist, and author of Trumponomics. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Hi, guys. Good morning. And I've been listening to your conversation. And, I got to tell you, every year for the last 32 years, as you know, Dan, because we usually get together, the Moore family treks from Northern Virginia to Chicago, and we stay on the Miracle Mile. And we have a great time. It's one of the most festive, and that we love the decorations and the shops and the restaurants, and we're not coming this year. Apparently everything is shut down, and this is just a national tragedy. I have smoke coming out of my ears. I'm so angry right now. It is one thing for these governors and mayors to shut down their businesses back in March and April when the virus first hit, and we didn't. And by the way, I was totally opposed to that at the time. But you could make an argument, hey, we got to do this to stop the spread of the virus, and for a few weeks. And we now have crystal clear evidence that none of that worked, right? None of it worked whatsoever. As I like to say, it didn't flatten the curve of the virus, but it did flatten every small business in America. And here we are 9 and 10 months later, and these idiots, these lunatics, these crazy politicians are doing exactly the same thing. The small business sector is getting crushed. Half of all restaurants in these states are looking at bankruptcy. And for what? For what? First of all, we're adults. We're a free society. The idea that these, in many cases, unelected officials can tell us what we can and can't do and when we can go into a restaurant, when we can go to the park, and when our schools are open, and this thing, it is – I'm just – you know what I'm also angry about, Dan and Amy? Why are people taking this? Are we a bunch of lambs? I mean, there should be people in the street, not rioting like the left
peaceful
does,
disobedience,
but peacefully protesting these outrageous abuses of power that have nothing to do with. I just think these governors and mayors like to exercise power just for the sake of it.
Oh, they love the attention. Some of them, our health department director, she's never gotten attention like this in her lifetime, and she's enjoying.
And by the way,
this way too much.
Was she elected? Was she elected to anything?
No.
I mean, who gives these are just officials. I don't know about your health official in Illinois, but I don't know if you've been reading the story about in Pennsylvania. This is a great story. The health official is shutting down everything she can get her hands on. She isn't even a health. You know what her degree is? She's a sociologist. And you know what she gets paid? $400,000 a year. I mean, and she's just this unelected bureaucrat who's acting like, Cruella de Vil, and nobody's stopping her. I mean, that's the thing, Dan, I'm frustrated about. Why are American people taking this?
I don't know. And then our governor moved the goalposts again yesterday, saying now we have to eradicate COVID. At first, it was, we'll go to phase 5 plan when there's a vaccine. Well, there is a vaccine. It started, being administered yesterday. And now he's saying everyone has to be vaccinated and COVID has to be eradicated. That is not going to happen. That's like saying you're going to get rid of the flu or the cold.
Yeah,
it's always going to be around. Exactly. It's always going to be part of our society, so we have to learn to live with it.
Do you guys know what location is the number one spreader of the virus?
Home.
Almost half of all you know what percentage of people get the coronavirus in restaurants?
Less than 2%.
2%. I mean, these are the idiots who talk about science, Dan. Aren't they the ones who throw science in our face? We have to do this for the science. If you're not for this, you're a science denier. The science is clear about this. Number one, lockdowns do not stop the spread of the disease. Japan, by the way, did you know Japan never locked down? I mean, it had some modest, restrictions, but almost no one has died of the coronavirus in Japan. They have the lowest death rate virtually in the world, and they never shut down. So, you look at internationally, you look at the states that have the highest death rate. By the way, the other thing is, if you looked at the 10 states that are, moved towards mostly or completely locked down, it's Illinois, it's California, it's Michigan, it's Rhode Island, it's Oregon, California, and Washington State. I might have missed one or two. You know what every one of those states has in common?
Democratic socialist governor.
Democratic governor. And what you guys don't realize in Chicago, because you're there, in Chicago, is that half of the states are not shut down. Florida is open for business. Tennessee is open for business. Texas is open for business.
Well, Indiana right next door is open for business too. I mean,
What's that?
Yes, I said Indiana right next door is open for business largely too. So yes, I get it. But here's the trick bag they have us in, and this was illustrated by that rally press conference with restaurateurs in New York City yesterday.
Yeah,
they want to work. If you let us go back to work, we'll go back to work, and that'll be the end of it. But if you're not going to, and that's their intent, then you have to. That's a taking, and you have to compensate us. You have to give us a lifeline. So we want this $120 billion Restaurant Act passed, and so as a free market guy, I mean, how do you argue with that proposition by the restaurateurs? It's difficult to argue with that. I don't want to use them the way the left uses them as sort of means to political ends. I don't want to, make an example of them. We're going to let your businesses be taken by the government so that, it really resonates just how evil the government is, just how uninterested in your livelihoods they are. But we're going to have to make an example of you to drive that point home. I don't want to use them as the means to political ends. So what do you say to them?
First of all, most Americans, the vast majority of Americans, don't want a welfare check. They want to work. They want to get back on the job.
And that's what that's what these restaurateurs said too.
Yeah,
but if you won't let me, then what do I do?
I know. I just wanted to get that out there. Americans want to work. We are a can-do society. We're not a can't-do society. Number two, that's only going to help some of the businesses. Dan, I mean,
well, I know.
Spending government money, that's the frustration. Okay, so you're going to help some of the businesses, others aren't going to get help. A lot of these small businesses are just too small to really be even, they don't know how to register for all this government money. They've never done that kind of thing before. We have the vaccine. We got to get that out, and we have to let Americans make their own decisions about this. Now, if we're going to do an aid package, if we are, and I'm opposed to it, but if we do it, the money should go to the businesses and the workers, and not one penny should go to Pritzker, not one penny should go to Lightfoot, not one penny should go to Cuomo. All of these, states are now, it's the old story of the, child who kills his parents and then, throws himself on the mercy of the court saying he's an orphan. They created the crisis, and now they want the federal government to rush in. And I've said it 100 times in your show. I'll say it again. It is not fair to Texas. It is not fair to Tennessee. It's not fair to Utah and Nebraska. They have to pay federal taxes to make up for the mistakes that your governor and your mayor have made. I don't know how you all feel about it, but that's my position.
I agree with that. But here's the thing. It seems like there's some frustration within the ranks on the left. Our very own Sack of Durbin, the senior senator from Illinois, chastising Nancy Pelosi for being unwilling to call the $750 billion bipartisan consensus relief package that does not include $160 billion or so for states and localities. Is what has been proposed, the $750 billion deal, is that the least worst we're going to get?
So there's a really important lesson here. In what's going on in the Democratic Party. People should be paying attention to this. Dan, you and I have been talking about this for months and months and years. The Democratic Party is the party that cares about government. They care much more about government employees than they do about private sector employees. And by the way, private sector employees were much more likely to be laid off than government officials. Most government officials aren't even working, and they're still getting paid. So this tells you about the difference between the two parties. This is why the single group that voted more than any other group for Joe Biden, do you know which group that was?
Public sector employees.
Government employees. They're like 92%. The deep state is real, folks. These are, pretty liberal people, but here's my problem with this. And we're enabling these governors and mayors. We're enabling them by writing them big checks. It's like you don't give an alcoholic another drink.
Right. Well, you'd be happy to know that our governor yesterday announced $700 million in cuts to executive branch agencies. Whip-de-doo.
Good.
But at least it's starting. The most secure job they have is a government job. Yeah. So now we're 9 months in, and they're finally, they're starting to tighten the budget.
And New York's having to do that too. Here's my solution to Illinois' problem. My friend Andy Andrzejewski, you guys know him. He runs openthebooks.com. He knows where all the waste and fraud and abuse is. Yeah. Make him the governor. Make him the economic czar. He can find the cuts. And you don't need $10
billion. You're going to cut your way out of $250 billion in unfunded pension liabilities.
Well, you got to start somewhere, Dan.
No chance. That is no chance. That is like bailing out the Titanic with a teaspoon. It is structural. It is not. That's a joke. That's nice and that's cute, but that is not serious. I'm sorry. I'm not buying that at all.
Oh, come on. He's identified.
It's fine. I know waste, fraud, and abuse. Blah 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 blah. That is child stuff. Honestly, that is children's stuff, kindergarten stuff. I've been around in Illinois too long to listen to that siren song.
Okay,
Sorry.
So how are you going to do it, Dan? How are you going to balance the budget?
You're not going to balance the budget. You're not going to. And until you want to confront the reality of stopping the phony baloney accounting, there's no such thing. It's not possible to balance the budget because there's no way to come up with the cuts or the taxes to fund the liabilities in real time. So unless you want to make structural changes, then all you're doing is managing the orderly going out of business sale for Illinois. And don't delude yourself into thinking you're doing anything else.
Well, then you're talking about a bankruptcy.